answering those near the end. So right away, I just wanted to say if thank you for joining us. And this was really, again, started because of Annie having the desire to help, yeah, wave Annie, desire to help other freelancers in their freelancing journey. And I'm going to have each of our panelists, as I'll call them, introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. So Annie, we'll start with you.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Annie. As some of you know, I'm excited to meet some new people in our in this webinar. We just did a previous webinar, and so it's great to see some new faces. I am a health marketing copywriter with a focus on an SEO lens to content, and I live in New England. I started my business almost a year ago now. So that's really cool. And I've been, growing, and I just made some moves to grow more, and I'm really excited to see how that turns out. So really just excited to talk with all of these fabulous freelancers and talk to all of you guys.
Perfect. Thanks, Annie. Jennifer, how about you?
Hey guys, I'm Jennifer, and I was part of the last webinar too, and I really hope you guys enjoy this one. We got a lot of positive feedback from the last one. Like Annie, I'm from Colorado. I started my business about a year and 9 months ago. I started learning copywriting several months before that, just so I was prepared. And I focus on healthcare, mostly doctors, but I will work with anyone in healthcare, and I do copywriting and content marketing.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. Terry, your turn.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Terry Schilling. I am in Chicago, Illinois. I'm a copywriter and copywriting coach where I typically work with creative entrepreneurs and small to mid-level size businesses on writing copy that has personality and influence. So that's a lot of working with websites, email campaigns, landing pages, and also been doing some coaching on the side where I review like marketing materials and help revise them as well. And just really excited to be here, and been freelancing and really have my own business for a little over 2 years now. So, I feel like just a lot of stories about pricing and kind of what to do. So I'm gonna have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. We're excited to dive into this topic. As Annie and Jennifer mentioned, we did a webinar about a month ago talking about finding your dream clients. And out of that came a discussion about just pricing, and as freelancers, how that can be just a really tricky subject to navigate, especially when you're first starting, but even if you've been in it for a few years. So my name is Rachel K. Cross. I'm a brand strategist and a career strategist. So helping brands and people understand themselves better and amplify their stories. So that's me in a nutshell, but I love helping people launch their businesses and love things like this, where we're just offering some free support and advice, because really we love the whole freelance community and really believe in solopreneurship and the freedom and joy that it can bring to you. So we're going to dive in. The thing that I hear a lot, and I think the biggest mistake I see when it comes to freelance pricing, is charging hourly. And I can say this because I did it myself when I first started 10 years ago. So Terry, will you help us just kind of give us a definition of fixed-based pricing? I'm sure people have heard that. I like the word value-based pricing even more.
Yeah.
Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on hourly, and the reason I'll start with that though, too, everyone, because hourly, it is typical to start that way. You do $35 an hour, move your way up to 60, 75, 100. But the problem with hourly is that it just gets confusing, and you're really kind of devaluing yourself, because it feels like it gives the client an advantage there to charge hourly. And then you're also talking about, constant timesheets, maybe multiple invoices, a lot of micromanaging on the client's end. And so if you flip that and turn around to fixed rate pricing, or like Rachel and I like to call it value-based pricing, you're really putting a value on what you do, your brand itself, the skills that you offer, and you can charge much more money. I will share my screen here, as I do have just a brief slide as well to show everyone. I'll put this up here. And we'll present it here. Sorry, always gotta, here we go. So a guide to value-based pricing. So I talked about you guys get paid way more money and you get paid up front. And I put in parentheses there to ask for a deposit, because once you get to this point where you can do the fixed rates and the value-based pricing, you can really be confident in yourself, and you should always ask for a deposit. Get paid up front. And if the client has any limitations about that, then maybe they're not necessarily the right client for you. But again, get paid way more money, get paid up front. You can charge clients based on the value your services are to them. So that's where the value-based pricing comes into. So for example, like if you are writing an email sequence that brings your client potentially $40,000 in sales, if that's what this value is to them, that's like what their goal is. And they know you have the skill set that can accomplish this. You've been able to communicate your value to them. You could realistically charge $2,500, which is a little bit above 5% of 40K. But again, this is the value, you're adding the value that it's to the client and what they can bring. So include a fixed and detailed scope when you do this. So we're talking about the proposal now. So if you do a fixed rate, you can talk about everything that's included in the project. So talk about the communication, the round of edits. You can talk about the research that you do. You'll do screen recordings. You'll organize a folder with all the documents so they can view this. This is what I do with my clients from a copywriting standpoint. I organize a Google Drive folder, talk about all the research. I research 3 competitors and do keyword research as well. Sometimes offer brand messaging guidelines. You give them all this, you see all the value that you bring to this project and for them, all the time that you're going to be saving, and then you can charge for that instead of doing hourly. And again, they'll see the value when you lay it out this way. Some other things, don't tell them how many days it will take to complete the project when you put your estimate or proposal. And what I mean by that is it's tough to just be like, oh, this will take me 2 weeks. Because sometimes that's where you get stuck. That's where people want to do the hourly rate. The clients want to, sometimes they'll say it'll only take you so long to do it, right? It should only take you 2 days, but they just think that you're just going to be able to write this thing in 2 days. But there's a lot of process, a lot of things that go into it, like research and the round of edits and the coffee trips and all that stuff, right? So don't really sell yourself short by saying, yeah, I'll get this done in a week per se. If they have a tight deadline, focus on that. But just don't get caught saying right away, like, I can turn this around in 2 days. Give them kind of a wide timeline to really show more of your value. And then if a client wants to reduce the scope, you reduce the price. So it's just like if they come to you and be like, oh, can you do all of this for $2,000 instead of $3,000? It's like, well, for $2,000, I can do this, right? Reduce the scope in that case. Stick to your price. Price higher so you pay yourself. And what I mean by that is, sometimes hourly when you start out, you're just like, okay, this took me 3 hours of work of the writing and everything. And really, that's just that's only the work that you do. You have to remember that you are a business owner now. So you have taxes to pay for. You have other resources that you buy, to keep your business alive. So I like to say, take the time that it takes you and the value that you bring to them, what that price is, that bottom line price, and then add 20% to it. And that's what you'll get for your fixed rate, your value-based pricing for the project. So stop sharing there. Just wanted to go over through bullet points, just some guidelines, maybe a little bit helpful to speak on that. But yeah, that's really my quick guide to more of the value-based pricing side. And instead of doing hourly rate, just shifting to that. Because again, you're valuing your time, you're valuing your skills, your knowledge, and it's important to communicate that as well, which I think we all will touch on a little bit later, of just communicating your value. So then again, they can see that fixed rates.
Perfect. I love that, Terry. That's so helpful. Thanks for putting together that slide too. I think, I know and I love that you even explain like how to get there, because I think that's the question I get asked the most. Okay, well, value-based pricing sounds great, but where do I even, start? So we're gonna jump to that in a little bit. But the other thing I see with a lot of copywriters is charging by the amount of words that you're writing. And so, Jennifer, I know you have some very strong opinions on this, as do you, Annie, and I would love for both of you to share why neither of you charges per word, even though you both are, relatively new within the last couple of years of freelancing, but you've been smart enough not to do that. So talk to us about that. We'll start with you, Annie.
Had to unmute myself there. So when I started and I took a course called Killer Cold Email, that's how I started my business with Jordan McKell. She's awesome. I very quickly learned, and I've done some writing and things before in my life, but nothing where I had a full-time business. And I quickly learned that people really limit themselves, and unintentionally and intentionally, sometimes clients and companies will also limit the amount of money you can make, which is just business, which is why you have to stay ahead of it. I only do per project pricing because when you get down to like pennies per word, you're going to be trying to stuff as many words as possible. It hinders the quality of your work. And in my opinion, it's often they'll be like, I want you to write 500 words. Well, that's not a lot of money if you're going to charge per word. What they should be charging, which is beneficial to both parties, is the quality of the work, which is the project and the scope of it and what's involved in that. And I feel like if they're not, then they're probably just looking for content stuffing and keyword stuffing, which isn't going to bring you a lot of long-term results for your own portfolio. And it's also just not going to bring a ton of long-term jobs. Like usually those people are looking for quick fixes. So that's just kind of like a rundown of why I don't personally accept those, but that's just my experience.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Really, you're going to devalue both for the client and yourself the quality of your work, and it kind of forces you, pigeonholes you into maybe doing something that if you had a little bit more freedom, you wouldn't do. Jennifer, what about you? Why don't you charge per word?
Yeah, especially whenever you're owning your own business, that almost puts your client as your boss, which they kind of are because they're paying you, but you are your own boss. You're not going to go by what they want. You're going to go by your pricing schedule, your pricing, it's all about what you want. If you are more comfortable with hourly, if you're more comfortable with charging by word, then okay, do it. But I don't think it's easy. I think you're going to run into a whole lot of roadblocks. You're going to run into a whole lot of difficult clients. One thing that charging by word does not do, it doesn't incorporate all your research. I do a lot of blogs and articles, and I research at least 2-3 hours before I even start writing. I make notes. When I'm being paid by word, which I never have, but if I was, I'm not getting paid for those 3 hours. And then you take into account that a lot of places don't want to pay you more than about 3 cents a word. You are getting paid way below minimum wage. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
I also just want to quickly point out that you are also like wasting time that you could be using to market your own business and find clients that are worth your time. So like you have to think about like if someone's not paying you for the time that you're spending on the project, you're giving someone free hours that you can put somewhere else. We only have 24 hours in a day. Most of us aren't awake for all of those, fortunately. But like every single hour you use as a freelancer should be worth something. It's either getting you future clients, getting your name out there, or you're making money on your current clients. And if you're not, then you're really just giving away your services for free, which is why another reason why I just like I don't think that anyway.
I mean, I don't want to discourage anyone. If you absolutely need the money and that is what's being offered to you, do what you have to do. But I would not make it your regular business. You're gonna have one big headache after another. That's just what I have been taught and what I have learned throughout. Trust me, whenever you want to go in confident with your clients, and if you are wishy-washy on your prices, you're not confident at all, and they're going to want to go somewhere else. It's just the little things that people can pick up on you. Set your prices. Like I said, I do blogs and articles a lot. I don't charge per word. I have a spread of how many words I will do, and then I charge per block. From 700 to 1,200 words, I will charge this. From 1,300 to 2,000, I will charge this. Now, if it's a really, really difficult piece that's going to take a ton of research and have a little bit of information, then I'll charge more. It's all about your time too. You just have to play around with it. You really, really do. You have to figure out how long it takes you to research, how long it takes you to do editing, how long it takes you to do everything. And you have to figure that into all of your pricing.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's a great segue to really talking about giving people practical advice of, related to where they're starting from, how they should actually even figure out what to start charging in the first place. And my number one piece of advice for freelancers is to research your competition. Go out there and figure out what other people are charging and make sure that your rates are commensurate with the value you're going to provide. And in some cases, that should be commensurate with your experience. Not all the time, but really, I truly believe that in your gut, you're going to have a feeling of what feels right for you, what feels good to you. And then you have to make a commitment to yourself not to go under that price just to get more clients, and have faith that if you continue charging what you're worth, that you're actually going to attract the clients that you're going to enjoy working with a little bit more, because they're going to value your services more. So Terry, I know you have really specific advice that's helpful for people that are starting on some of the gig sites like Upwork, and how to start, pricing and charging for those. Can you share with us about that?
Yeah, so I really built my freelance business on Upwork when I was starting out. And, in that last webinar, we talked on this a little bit. But for me, Upwork is interesting because they have you put your hourly rate on there, like right smack dab in the middle of your profile. So it starts out where you're saying $35 an hour or 70, and then people will go and say, I want to hire you. And then it's just like, do we do it by hourly? Do you track your time, or can you do like a fixed price for the project? And even though that you have that hourly rate on there, like think about it this way, where if you want to charge $80 an hour, but maybe like the writing side of it is, this price per word or X amount, the $80 an hour may count for all that time involved. So it's not just like the hourly time of writing, but you can be clear in that when you're talking to a client. And if you're on a gig site like Fiverr as well, you can price per project. So you can say, I can do like a website copy for X amount of price, then people can bid on that. You can start to do that on Upwork now too, where you can offer specific services, charge a flat rate, and somebody can be like, yeah, I want to hire you for the landing page for $2,000. So please, let's just take care of that. So there's ways around that, even though the hourly rate kind of just shows people on Upwork specifically, just really what you charge. It gives them an idea, a ballpark of your rates. But again, and sometimes when you're on those sites, and let's say that they set a budget on there, because people set jobs and they're like, my budget is $200 to $500, or it's $1,000. If sometimes you do more than that, bid anyway if you feel it's a good project. Sell your value in the proposal side of it, and then offer a little more. Do that in your proposal. Because like looking at everything you need, I would give an estimate of $1,500 to complete this. This is what I typically charge. But they might see your value in that from your proposal and end up hiring you. You guys talked a lot about this, but really it's just really owning in on your value, all that time that it takes, and then just trusting yourself to charge for that. And you'll see, once you grow as a freelancer, that the clients that will pay your rates and they don't really fuss about it, they're more enjoyable to work with. They actually will appreciate your work more. They will say, this is great. Oh my gosh, because they know that they're hiring a professional to do this. Like, you sold them on this. You put your brand out there, your skills out there, your knowledge, you're helping them save time and money to help them earn more money. And so they will value that work. And trust me, the clients that say yes to my rates, they see it on my website, or like, hey, Terry, yes, this is great. Let's go for it. I send them the work, and they're more happy about it. And even their criticism is not harsh, right? They're just a little bit more constructive about it. And it's important to really put your ego aside as well and just work with them on that. But sometimes you do see clients who are going to try to nickel and dime you, for sure. You guys touched on that. Rachel, you talked about it. You can sense, you can feel it in your gut that this is going to be difficult to work with. And also just put that, in your proposal and your estimates of just kind of the working structure of it, to make sure that there's some guidelines and expectations at the beginning. I'm going to do 2 full rounds of edits. If it's a little bit more extensive, we'll talk about it. You want to avoid the scope creep side of things. I know I'm going a little bit off from the Upwork side, but this stuff is just coming up, and it's important once you're dealing with clients. And lastly, I'll just say this, Rachel, you touched on, you touched on the relationship side of things. Like, just know that you guys are selling a relationship as well in this. Yes, you're selling the skill set, hopefully great results, but sell a relationship, be easy to work with, because that's why people will come back to you and refer to you. Because sometimes, they will enjoy the work, but if they enjoy the experience side of it too, that's going to, be more lasting in their mind at the end of it.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. And I think even knowing that I want to encourage people, price what you're worth, but also be willing to walk away from a client that is going to be more, to put it mildly, like more of a pain than they're worth. So yes. I know, Annie, you have a way that you kind of group your proposals and how you present value-based pricing and project-based pricing to your clients. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's so funny that all this is happening. I feel like things happen in certain times for a reason. I actually just got off the phone yesterday with someone who is a national, online fitness application for businesses to give to their employees. So it's more like an employees benefit package. And for right now, everything's kind of going digital because of gyms aren't open for a lot of cities. And so we were talking, and, I like to use the first conversation with a client as a way to tell them my brand voice and who I am, and also kind of get acquainted with what they're looking for, what their pain points are, that sort of thing. I don't usually go over pricing unless they explicitly ask me. And even then I give a range. I today wrote the proposal, and it took me an hour, but the reason when he asked my pricing and I gave him a range, he did kind of pause for a minute, because he's like, listen, I can totally tell that you are bringing the quality that you're saying you're going to by looking at your website, by looking at your portfolio. We're going over a few different candidates just because we don't know how much we have to put into this. Hi, Elena, if you could just mute your window until the end, that'd be awesome. So back to what I was saying. So I spent an hour, I fleshed out, here's what sets me apart. Yes, you are paying more. You're paying hundreds more. You are, but you are also putting in what's called a return of investment. So the amount of money you're putting into something is what you're going to get out of it. So what differentiates me is that I have marketing experience. I am a creative writer, so I bring the creative perspective to writing copy. And in addition, I am focused on SEO content. So SEO is how, you get ranked by Google. In a nutshell, it's a lot, but I focus on SEO optimized content. And I explained to him, which is another thing, once you start getting the ball rolling and you get client testimonials and you ask them for examples of the results of your work, like if anything was successful, I put that in my email. I was like, hey, I was able to get this blog from hundreds of views to tens of thousands in 5 months. This is why you're paying for me. You're not, you're paying for the time that I'm putting into optimizing your content for you. And just the relationship that I have with my clients, I always tell them I have a personalized relationship where they can reach me. I do consults with them. If there's something they don't like Terry said, being willing to be humble and be like, totally, I didn't get that the first time around when we were talking. I will totally redo that for you. So the balance of asserting yourself confidently and not backing down when they kind of are hesitant about your pricing, and then following up with a really detailed proposal with examples specifically of how you've helped people. If you don't have success stories yet, just going over what sets you apart in the email and the proposal contract is so important and will make the difference between, your proposal and someone who's like, I'm a general copywriter and I want to write for your blog. Who are you going to hire? You're not going to, if your work isn't going to get attention for a company, then the company shouldn't be paying for it, because the marketing is the other side of that, right? You could write a great blog, or you could make an amazing landing page or rebrand something. But it's not optimized, no one's going to see all that awesome work. And so that money's wasted. So that's what I personally kind of talk about and show them what sets me apart in a respectful way. Like, I don't put down other copywriters, but you definitely want to set yourself apart in order to justify your value-based pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, that guy, Terry Schilling's the worst. Don't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Every single proposal I write lately, I'm like, don't go to Terry Schilling, whatever you do. Like, I don't care if you can, but don't go to Terry.
Rachel, can I get access to mute everyone on this? And I'll just talk for the rest of the thing? Oh my gosh.
Well,
it would be so funny just like in this world, just knowing if we competed, like all the other copywriters we know, if we like competed once for another job.
Oh,
So,
that would be the best like Survivor reality show. Like, I would love that. But no, like everyone brings something special and unique to the
That's
table.
right.
You have to like, be able to market yourself as much as you're marketing your client.
Yeah, I love that. In our last webinar, we talked about niching down on your client so that you can really talk about the expertise you're bringing to that specific type of client, whether, you know, it's healthcare or maybe it's a type of project like SEO or, you know, landing pages. Annie, you mentioned portfolios, and testimonials, which I know, Jennifer, you have a really interesting take on that and how that can actually help you raise your prices as you continue to grow in your business. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, like Rachel said, whenever you first go to price your services, do your competition research. Look at their testimonials and look at their portfolio. If they have big time clients and a lot of testimonials and a huge portfolio, don't charge as much as them unless you have the same thing. Whenever you have social proof through testimonials, through video testimonials, through portfolio pieces that you can prove how well they did, then you can up your prices because you are able to prove how good you are. One thing that we all discussed once before is whenever you do your contract, some people do these, some people don't. I personally do. I use and.co, and just in their plain Jane free contract, it even says in there, I have the right to use this as a portfolio piece. Keep that in there. Keep that in there, because a lot of times people don't want that. Tough. You're a ghostwriter. You're a freelancer. It's their problem if they don't read the contract. You know, you need that to be able to justify your prices. You know, say I had a piece that was ranking number 1. Well, what if this person said, no, you can't use that on your portfolio? Okay, well, that's going to be a big driving point for my prices. How am I supposed to get bigger clients? One thing that I do that I don't see a lot of other freelancers do is I go through my clients' websites, and if they have on there that they've been featured on Huffington Post or NBC or whatever, I put that on my website. I say, my clients have been featured on this. It gains more reputation for you. You're not saying who that client is. You're protecting them, but your client has been featured on those platforms, and that just drives your price even more.
I actually looked at, Jennifer, your website when I first added you, and I was like, oh my God, she, like, her clients, it really does, like, even for like networking, like, I was so impressed with your website and like who your clients had been featured on that I was like, I have to talk to this person. Like, I want to know, I want to pick her brain. I want to know more about her. So it also helps on like networking too.
I honestly don't see many freelancers doing that. If you go back through your clients, I guarantee at least a couple of them will have some sort of media mention on their website, and you can do that on yours. It just drives it. It drives your reputation. Oh my gosh, these people had her. Oh, I got her. You know, she's worth that price, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys can, so I was going to say, you can even flip this and turn it into pieces of content. Like if you have access to use that, you can do like a video tutorial by using Loom or Cloud App, or just break it down in a LinkedIn post or Instagram, like showcase your clients' work. Cause like they're getting some pub too. They're getting out there, but then you're showing like the website or like the blog that you wrote and kind of break it down. Like I did this with type of research. We focused on this keyword and now it's ranked on the first page and it brought them X amount of revenue. And then just at the end of the post, just like, if you want to talk about how I can do this for you, it's like, send me a DM, you know, or just like one word reply. and turn that into that. So you don't really just have to turn it on, like always do cold pitching. We can turn this around into content and put yourself out there. Just occasionally somebody may see it and it just might be perfect timing.
Yep.
And they'll reach out to you and hire you.
Yeah, I love that. And I know the three of us had talked, or the four of us had talked too, about if you have a client that insists that you cannot use their name or work on your, promotional site, externally facing, that doesn't preclude you from still talking to your prospective clients about the work you did in private conversations, in private emails. So I think there's also ways to make sure you're showcasing your work both publicly and then also in these one-on-one conversations, again, going back to relationship based. So really quick, we kind of covered a lot of what I was going to talk about, but just summarizing, here are some of the common pricing mistakes that I see from people. So again, we talked about trading dollars for hours. And part of why you don't want to do that is, especially when you're first starting, you're going to underestimate your time and it's going to cut you short. So when you are working on your fixed pricing or value-based pricing, make sure you're also padding in time for yourself as far as the project timeline. And Terry was great in mentioning, like, don't tell them exactly a time, give them obviously a time frame. I think that's important, but make sure as you're starting out that as you build your processes, as you build your own kind of methods of doing things, you're going to learn how long it takes you to research, to write, to edit, as Jennifer said as well. I think a lot of people, what I see is people either undercharging or overcharging, especially women. We tend to undercharge. There's lots of research on this. That's why, again, researching your competition is really important. And then Terry started to mention this, which was succumbing to scope creep. And what I mean by this is having something in your proposal, in your contract. For example, let's say it's writing a blog post a week, and now all of a sudden your client comes in and says, hey, can you also throw in a social media, blurb for that blog post? And maybe it feels like not a big deal and it feels related, but I really encourage you to add that as an additional service versus just building that in, because it sets a precedent that you don't have to stick to, the client doesn't have to stick to what's in the contract. And B, it's also your time is valuable, and make sure that you're charging for every piece of value that you're bringing to the client. So speaking of contracts and proposals, we also wanted to talk about making it easy to get paid. And my friend Jason actually is on here. So thanks for joining us, Jason. But he is a freelance accounting bookkeeping expert. And we talked about different ways to make sure that as a freelancer, we don't want to make it hard for our clients. And so besides having really clear terms in your contract, both from a scope perspective, payment terms perspective, I would love to hear, Terry, why don't we start with you? What are the ways that you make sure it's really easy for you to get paid by your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So like in my contract and in the estimate proposal, I tell them how the payment structure works. So if we agree, I will send them an invoice where they can pay via ACH transfer, bank transfer, or via credit card. And then I talk about that I ask for X amount up front. We get that clear out of the way, and then that's really the kickstart of the project. And so I use the Wave app. If you guys go to waveapp.com, look up Wave app software. It's really great. You can create nice, attractive invoices with your logo and everything. And you can even put in terms if they pay for a credit card on there as well. And you can break it down into all the different pieces of the project, all the deliverables. And it's really simple. They just review it and they say, pay the invoice, and they can either link their bank or they can link a credit card, and then they pay for it. Really simple and easy. It's not all this tedious thing of like, here's all my banking information, or, hey, I need you to fill this out and get it back to me, and then we'll do it this way. Sometimes if you end up working for agencies, that structure is just there. It's going to happen to you. You're going to fill out all the forms. You're going to get direct deposit, which is nice. But again, when your side of things, you want it to be easy for the client to pay your services. So yeah, I use the Wave app.
I use Wave apps as well. I put the link in chat if anyone is curious about checking that out. And that's kind of a full suite accounting software for business owners. So think of it as a QuickBooks Lite. QuickBooks is muy complicado to me. It's like I got a version of it when I first started 10 years ago, and I was like, this is way too much for me. People like Jason, can use it, but people like me, not so much. So,
Yeah.
Annie, what about you? What do you use to make sure, what tools or best practices do you have to make sure you can make it easy to get paid by your clients?
Yeah. So is FreshBooks the other QuickBooks, is like QuickBooks Lite or whatever?
FreshBooks is a different program, and also from what I understand, a lot easier. It's kind of a Wave Apps, FreshBooks, same thing or different thing, but similar in that they're not QuickBooks.
Okay, yeah. So when I first started, I was going to use FreshBooks, but I already had a PayPal account. So I upgraded to the business, which allows you to make invoices. I, put my cute little banner on my invoice, so it's like branded. In my contracts, before I even send anything out, for my repeat clients, I don't require a deposit, but like Terry said, it's super important because there will be people, and it's important before you start any work and you make clear to them in your email when you are agreeing on something and about to send the contract over, you want to write down how much you require in deposit, how it can be paid, that you will send out the invoice. That's the easiest for me personally, the easiest way, unless you're working with like a huge brand that wants to do it themselves in finance. But you want to make clear the timeline of payment, right? So you want to make clear like every other Thursday from this Thursday to that Thursday, you will be paying me, $1,000. And making sure that they have like the exact dates so that if they do miss it or they don't go by the net 15 and it's been past 15 days that you've invoiced them, you can refer back and be like, look, I can't continue to give you my services if you don't follow the contract. I mean, I haven't really had to deal with that so much, but you want to make clear to them like when they're going to be getting it, what email they want it sent to. PayPal makes it super easy to direct pay. Yes, there's a fee, but Terry was talking about this with us too. Like you can claim invoicing fees on your taxes. So that's super important to keep in mind because it is a 2.9 service fee, but that 2.9%, like I'd rather pay that $20 on, out of my pocket to make sure that like it is so quick and easy to get paid. Instead of like whatever other software people use that might not have fees, but you like PayPal's a really big name, right? And so it does kind of make you look professional to have a business PayPal or a business Wave or whatever it may be. And you can also like without telling your client, you can, if you really think that 2.9 or whatever it is going to be a huge problem, you can put that into the price that you give them without telling them that, that extra $50 is for, whatever. And that's the great thing about value-based pricing is you don't have to like explain a random $50 chart on top of the pennies that you made for work. You know what I mean?
Yes. So, if you don't hear anything else from this, do not add a line item for credit card processing fees on your invoice. There is nothing that could devalue your service more, in my opinion. And what Annie's talking about are some common, 2.9% plus usually 30 cents per transaction. That's a really common credit card transaction fee. Honestly, it's minuscule compared to the peace of mind and ease and having the money in your bank account now. And what Annie was talking about as far as having something as a write-off, a business expense, those transaction fees that you're going to get charged can be an expense to your business. So, reduce your net profit for your business. So definitely keep that in mind. And to me, it's totally worth it to do that. Sorry, Terry, were you going to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of took a lot of what I was going to say. I just want to make it clear too that you can use it as a business expense. So do track that. And it's really just the price of doing business online. Like you said, it's just peace of mind that you're getting paid. There's some, clients, again, who you'll be able to get paid fully up front, or by check via, bank transfer. But sometimes waiting for the check kind of stinks, right? And you need the money. And Wave in PayPal, they do a great job. It's in your account in a couple of days. And even Wave is really cool. They send you an email, be like, congrats, you just got paid. It's one of the best emails you'll receive as a freelancer. It's really cool. And Wave is super helpful, a lot of tools. Because I remember, I don't know if you experienced this, Rachel, but even like in the first couple months of the pandemic, they waived the fee to get early payouts. So you could get paid right away. I don't think they do that anymore. But again, it just shows you, that they were looking out for you. So it's just a really cool tool. But yes, definitely keep track of those, transaction fees as a business expense.
Yeah, and hopefully your accounting software, whatever you're using as that online payment portal, is doing that for you. Jennifer, what about you? What tools do you use?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch really quick on the fee. Everyone does it. I mean, I got a speeding ticket about a month ago, and to pay online, I had to pay I don't know, I think it was like $13 more just to pay online instead of sending in a check. Everybody does it. It's not just freelancers, it's the government too. You can't help it. You can't get around it. But I use FreshBooks. And the reason I use it, I don't know if this works with Wave or PayPal, but I use Zapier, if any of you guys have heard of that. And it integrates my and.co contracts and my FreshBooks account. So anytime I do something on one, it automatically puts it in the other, and it just saves me so much time. As far as getting payment, I require, like Terry does, 50% up front for the deposit, and I do not give them any edited work until I get the final payment. Nope, not going to happen. Yeah, also, I will put in my contract that if I don't get the full payment, they do not have rights to it. So if they publish it, they're at risk being sued. Not that I would actually do it. I don't know. I've never had that problem, but it's in the contract.
Yeah. And again, if you have a good nose for who people are, if you're working with clients that are respecting your value-based pricing without trying to barter or offer you cents on the word or hourly more so, but cents on the word, for instance, content mill stuff, they're probably not gonna stiff you and just ghost you if they've signed a contract. I haven't had any, because they're people who recognize and are professional and appreciate the value that you are giving to their company. So it's very rare that those instances happened. I've had to walk away from a contract for and because they were trying to after a while they didn't understand what a retainer was, which was interesting. So I had to explain to the CEO what a retainer was, and then they tried to ask for money back, and I was like, you know what, I'm just I think we're probably finished here, in a professional way, and I wish you luck. But it does happen sometimes, but it's probably not gonna, the contract gives you all the power. So whatever you put in there, if they sign it.
Yeah, sometimes, right? Yeah. Sometimes I feel like you feel they just sign it. I mean, I'm sure they read it, but they sign it right away and you're good. And, Jennifer, I like the notes that you talked about of putting that in the contract because I've never done that where I don't get full payment until and then do edits. I do always do the upfront payment. A little trick I use, I mean, I guess it's a trick, is ask for 60% upfront. And, sometimes clients will be like, can you do 50? And I'm fine with 50. So it's yeah, that works too. But 60%, if they agree to it, cool. I get a little bit more money up front to do the project. But then sometimes 50% just makes more sense to them, which is fine.
You will very, very rare. I think I've had one client who has never asked for an edit before. Everyone else, they want 1 or 2 edits done, and I won't touch it unless I get my final payment.
Yeah.
And again, if I don't get my final payment, then you don't have the rights to the piece.
Yeah, I really like the rights to the piece part. I typically do it where it's upon completion, and I break it down the different phases in my proposal or in my estimate that I'll send via email. Just how it's going to work out. And then, I'll invoice you once we get these deliverables after the first round of edits, maybe break it down. But again, I like the note that, unless I receive full payment, then you can't use this.
Yeah. And if they do, they're at risk being sued.
Yeah.
If you want to go that route, but they don't know that. They don't know if you will or not.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing that you could do, if you do have an accounting person and let's say you're trying to chase a payment, you can just say, hey, can you do me a solid and email this client and be like, hey, I'm the accountant for Terry Schilling and your invoice is overdue. to maybe give a different nudge coming from somebody else. It might make them more alarming. Or, if Jason here wants to just sell his services to do that, to be everybody's email guy to send, hey, you owe Terry Schilling X amount of money. Can we do this? But like a lot of these payments like Wave, they do have like reminders that you can do, like automatic reminders that you can set. But again, sometimes, clients avoid it for a while, and chasing down payments it's difficult. But again, having maybe that outside voice could be the extra nudge that they need.
And I think one really important thing is your discovery call. You can tell so much about who you're going to be dealing with on that discovery call. Make it, don't make it an hour, but make it long enough to where you can tell their personality. You can tell if you trust them. You can tell if they're going to be an issue. And if they are, say no. Say, I have, right now I have other pieces. I don't know if I'm going to be available, and I can refer you to someone. You don't have to flat out and say, I don't like you. I'm not going to work with you. You can make an excuse, but don't work with someone is going to be an issue.
Yeah. Always remember, like, you are the voice of your brand. So like, even if someone is being kind of like stingy or not reliable, you're reliable and you're professional. And so like, you never want to just be like, well, F you, but there's professional ways to end a contract. And if in your contract, like me, you put, freelancer has a right to end project at any time, without refund for the moment up to the moment of dissolution. So adding those terms and being really explicit. I'm going to try to see if I can get you guys a general template of what I use for a contract for the email, without like giving too much of my contract away. But I will try to see if I can, just so you can look over it yourselves and kind of, so I don't have to keep like talking
about. What do you use for your contract service? Do you use?
I'm sorry, what? No, I actually, I got a template from a freelancer and I made it my own. So added a lot of clauses about the ownership of the work, portfolio samples, why, they can just, disband the contract or whatever, but they're not getting a refund for if like the product has been given to them, or, up until that point, consummate with like what I've given them. Just to be really clear about if those things do happen, you can end it in a professional way and say, I have like these really new exciting projects to take on, and I'm just really not going to be able to have the bandwidth to keep, dealing with whatever. So, but I never used what you use. I'm definitely going to look it up, but and it's
and.co. I actually first heard about that from Jason as well. And it kind of has a proposal template you can use that then can also invoice if you want. And I love using the Zapier integration to then to FreshBooks. I'm sure they have one for Wave. So that's a great thing. I just want to be conscious of our time. So we have a few more minutes, but I know, I think this is really good advice. We talked about contract a little bit. My business attorney calls this your first line of defense when it comes to your business. And so it's really important for you to have that. So I love, Annie, that you're going to share a template with it. I also want to encourage you guys to not just use that, make sure you read through it and make sure it works for you. And this is not just, again, to protect your client and make sure they understand, but also to protect you and give you the out if you want to. And the second point I want to make is I think I've been doing this for 10 years as far as my own gig is concerned. I've never had an issue. And the reason is it comes down to relationships. So knowing the kind of clients that I want to work with, making sure that we have a good rapport. I've become friends with a lot of my clients over the years. A lot of my clients are friends before their clients. So I think just having that focus on relationships and how you're serving your client is going to take care of a lot of this other stuff that we're talking about, because you can have those direct, hard conversations when you need to. I've fired clients when I've needed to. And for similar reasons where either they weren't valuing my work or they weren't using me for what really my expertise is. And so I think it's just giving yourself permission to do all of those things and not only valuing your work, but valuing who you are and what you bring to the table. I know we had some additional resources. Let me just check the chat really quick for Q&A. I know I saw that Michelle had a question about how do you estimate the deposit? Terry, do you want to talk about that? I know you said, 60%. I know it depends on, to me, it depends on the price of the project and how long
Right.
the project is going to be. Sometimes I break mine into thirds, the payment. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And it really, it does depend on the length of it and the price. So like if it's say you do something for $400, if you want to do 50%, I think that's really fair at that point to get $200 up front and then break it down to 200. You set the expectations of when they'll pay that. But if it's a longer project that might take you, 5 to 6 weeks, 2 to 3 months, what have you, get your initial deposit up front to start. And then you can break it down into 25% milestones after we review the first draft and do a first round of edits, and then 25% upon completion. Right now, for my business, if anything is under $1,000, then I ask for 100% upfront payment. And I'm clear about that right away in my email or in my proposal. So again, you guys can maybe do something like that too. Like if it's $300, it's like, oh, for $300, I do typically ask for, an upfront payment to complete this. You're just like, you're kind of betting on yourself. And I know you may get nervous when you do that, but you'll see there's a lot of clients who'll be like, okay, that's fair. They want to get this work done. Right. And they're a business person too. They may try to negotiate with you a little bit more. But if you're firm on this and you come confident and say this, there's like, okay, yeah, that's works. Let's just get this taken care of. Like they'll spot the little bit of hesitancy from you. And then they'll try to, like, some clients will try to take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I've always been a betting gal. So I think part of freelancing that's so exciting for me is like, you do bet on yourself and you're always like, oh God, are they going to accept it? I don't know if there's something like masochistic about me, but like, I just really love that, like, that freedom that you are as a freelancer, and like you're your biggest advocate. Like you have to be, no one else is going to, like, a client's not just going to be like, let me pay you more. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, but like probably not, right? So
Yeah.
you have to be your own salesperson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. That's great encouragement for everyone. Jennifer, do you have kind of a closing piece of encouragement for anyone attending today?
I really agree with Terry there. And well, I just lost the track of my mind. I have no idea what I was going to say.
Well,
I
approve your message of agreeing with me.
What about you, Terry? Any closing thoughts?
Just one thing that came up with the proposal side of things, or the contract side of things. Like if you have an accountant person to look over it and put any clauses, have that, do that. It might be worth paying a couple of extra services just to have a concrete contract. And then I use EverSign, and I use the free version of it for now. Because it's only, you get 5 documents a month. And sometimes that's just enough where you send it and they electronically sign it. You do too. And Rachel, you touched on the relationship side of things. Like, guys, you can really gauge your relationship with the client. Like, if Rachel and I know each other really well, if we ever did work together, Rachel, I'm just using you as an example. And she said, hey, Terry, can you help, review my landing page, maybe rewrite this? Yeah, absolutely. I would honestly probably just send Rachel an email of an estimate. Be like, here's everything that we need. Does this sound good? Yep, let's do it. You don't have to always be so formal with everything. If you have a proposal template, you can break that down, copy and paste a little bit of it, adjust it into an email and get things rolling that way. But again, just gauge the relationship. If it's a huge contract, like with an agency for like $10,000, $20,000, then maybe set like a bigger proposal, in a PDF that you guys attach, because it could be multiple people looking at this, looking at that proposal and making the decision.
I remember what I was going to say now.
Yes.
You have to get to a point where you know how long it takes you to do something. Like I said before, I do a lot of blogs and articles, so it doesn't take me that long. But one of the things I also do is sales pages, long form sales pages. And one of the things that I do is extensive customer research, and I build that into the price. I'm charging about $4,000 for a long form sales page, and it takes me about 2 weeks just to do the customer research. So whenever I ask for a deposit, I know $4,000 is a ton of money, even for well-off company. That's still a lot. Mm-hmm. So asking a $2,000 deposit, maybe, but I have to take into consideration that I'm going to be doing customer research for 2 weeks before I even write anything. So it's going to be at least 2 weeks, if not longer, before I get paid by them again. So you have to budget what it's like in your life, and you have to budget your business as well. You just have, it's trial and error. You have to do things so many times to figure out how long something takes you.
Yeah.
You can go by there.
Yeah. And
What
put
about
at
you?
least,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
I was gonna say, put at least 20% away when you get paid, no matter what it is, whether it's the 50% deposit, whether it's up front, whether it's $80, take 20%, put it in a savings account for taxes, because we have to pay quarterly taxes. You got to pay, Uncle Sam. It's important to remember. My first year was complete organized chaos with this. In my head, I knew what I needed to pay for taxes, but I did not put away enough, to be completely honest, right away. So it's like when I had to owe money, I figured it out. But again, to be safer, once you get money, just put at least 20% away. If you want to feel better, maybe do 25. I live in Illinois, so property taxes and state taxes are a little bit higher. So, I plan accordingly there.
Yeah, no, it's super important. And on top of that, like putting money aside to invest in yourself too. Like I just spent a sizable sum of money that on my own technical SEO and having someone like take care of that for my website for the next year. And for me, it's worth it because like if I can get a ROI of like, 10 times that, then like, cool, then like that's worth the money, right? So I'm thinking of it as like a company perspective too, is like hiring my own people. But like,
yeah,
the only reason I was able to do that is because I was very, very strict about keeping money aside for the business. So if you can, if like, the first couple months might be rough, like I totally get it. I took out my 401k to start my business. So like the first couple months, if you're like, take it with a grain of salt. Like if you really need the money to pay for your rent, like do that. But like once you're at a comfortable spot with some long-term clients, like make sure to put that money aside.
I love it. Well, you guys, it's 1 o'clock. I want to be respectful of people's time. Really quick, Annie, how can people reach you? Where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you? I know we're going to email the attendees after this to make sure they get a copy of the recording of this and also all of our contact info. But if someone wants to contact you right away, how do they do that?
Yeah, so my website is palmercopy.com. So Palmer, like the last name, Palmer, and my email is on that website. I also have a direct contact form that you can just do on the website, but my email is annie@palmercopy.com.
Perfect. Jennifer, what about you?
You're on mute, I think. Maybe not.
No, she wasn't. A little bit of delay.
Oh, okay.
Maybe just put it in the chat. We're having some audio issues with you, Jennifer. Terry, what about you?
You guys can go to my website, terryshillingwrites.com. And I feel like after saying like where they can find me, I feel like I realize how much stuff I do. Not to just like toot my horn, but like you guys look up like Terry Shilling Creative, Terry Shilling Copywriting. There's a lot of things that I have out there. I have a Copy Corner podcast, Copy Co-op Facebook group. Is really for like a lot of other freelancers. Like no matter what your skill set is as a freelancer, you're an amateur copywriter now. Like you're marketing, you're writing marketing copy. And so I just share a lot of resources and have other interviews. Rachel was a guest on my live show in there. We have a lot of fun, play a Who's Tagline, Is It Anyway game as well every week. So that's a lot of fun. But yeah, you guys, shoot me a message or, text or on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm on my website, email me.
Yeah. I just put my info in the chat, Rachel K Group. I'm Rachel K Cross on LinkedIn. And I know Terry also has an upcoming webinar related specifically to Upwork, if that's something you're interested in. So make sure to go to his website or reach out to him. He can give you
I'll put that link in the chat if you guys are interested. I know Anne Marie, who's in the webinar or was, I think she still is. She participated in it and she's having a lot of success already on Upwork. And it's just a great way to get started, get some early clients and get comfortable with pricing your worth and, learning a few things like what you can charge. There's a lot of, obviously it's a good way to see what clients are looking for work right now.
I love it. I know there was a couple of things we didn't get to, like a proposal scope example. Michelle, you can Google that. There are plenty of examples of proposals out there that are pretty good and you can find that online. So I encourage you to do that. Again, we'll be emailing you. Stay in touch, connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day. And we're just really thankful that you all were able to join us here. We hope you found this informative. And good luck in your freelancing journeys, wherever that takes you. Have a fantastic week, you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Do we wait for 5 minutes while everybody
Yeah,
logs
just
off?
wait while everyone is
Yeah.
still.